I sense an awesome moving of the Holy Spirit, and I see His countenance resting on each face. I know that there are angels hovering all around us, for the presence of the Lord is in this place. He is here, holy, holy. He is here, amen. He is here, listen closely. I will bless His name again. He is here, listen closely. Hear Him calling out your name. He is here. You can touch Him. You will never be the same. He is here. You can touch Him, and you will never be the same. I've asked the Lord to meet with us here this morning and just kind of touch me so that I can share with you some of the things that have happened over the last year and a half of my life. Back in May of 2020, I remember going to the office one day, and when I got there, I started coughing really bad. Couldn't figure out what was wrong, just couldn't stop. And of course, back then, in the height of all the fear of COVID, my boss sent me home and said, "You've got to go get tested." So I left that day, and I went and was tested and went home, and of course it takes a few days to get it. Come to find out it was negative, and I just had to stay at home. I called my doctor, and they were able to give me some prescriptions, and actually in a few days I began to feel a little bit better. And so after about a week I went back to work and honestly didn't give it another thought. And that was in May. By September, I kind of knew that something was not right. I didn't know what it was. And I kept thinking, you know what? This is the aging process. I'm getting older. This must be what it is. When I was having trouble walking up a flight of stairs and had to stop and rest, I remember thinking, wow, this is just all coming on so quickly. I can't believe I'm getting this old this quick. And as it continued to get worse, I realized that maybe something else was going on. So being a self-diagnosed medical doctor, I decided that it was probably nerves. It was anxiety. I'd been at home. I'd been working from home. I hadn't left my home. And I was sure that that's what it was. And it got so bad, those of you who know me will understand the absurdity of this, but I went for about 10 days and was not able to take care of myself or my dog. And literally, I didn't do a dish in my house for 10 days. In my kitchen, the counters were full of dirty dishes. And I just didn't live like that. So on September 16th of 2020, I had gone to bed that night, and my breathing had gotten so labored that I couldn't lie down. And when I would take a breath, I could hear what sounded like aluminum foil crinkling in my lungs. And I remember, I wasn't able to sleep that night, and I remember thinking to myself, if God will let me live until the morning, I'm going to go to the hospital. And I knew I had to take care. My dog is very sick. She has idiopathic epilepsy, and so she takes medicine at 7. And I thought, if I can make it till 7, I'm going to be doing good. And so I got in my car a little after 7 that morning, and I called work, and I said, I'm fine. I probably won't be in today. I'm headed to the hospital. I think something may be wrong. It's probably just anxiety. You know, it's probably just my nerves. They'll laugh at me and give me an Ativan and send me home. And so when I got there, the parking lot was set up in such a way that there were really no parking places close to the door. It was raining that day, and I got out of my car and walked to the door of the emergency room. And by the time I got to the door, I literally was unable to stand. And in my mind, I kept reasoning this out, thinking, I'm fairly young, never had any health problems. My entire life, I've never had any health problems. And I'm just sure that they're going to chuckle at me, give me a pill, and send me home. So when I got in the doors, they saw that I was struggling, and 3 nurses came over and took me back immediately. They didn't have insurance information or name or anything like that. And I was so out of breath from walking that I really couldn't talk. I couldn't tell them anything. And so they started doing what they do. They roll up my sleeve and do blood pressure and got me into a bed immediately and did an EKG and all this kind of stuff. And after a few minutes, I was able to talk again, and I said, is the doctor going to come in soon? Because I have to be home by 3 today. My dog has to have medicine at 3, so I need to get out of here. And I remember the nurse looking at me with almost a look of pity on her face, and she said, I don't think you're going to be home by 3. So not long after that, the cardiologist came in, and they began to go over all the things that they said were wrong with me. And so once the cardiologist got there that morning, I found out that I had stage 4 heart failure. And the technical term is viral cardiomyopathy. And they immediately scheduled all kinds of tests you just wouldn't imagine. And in my mind, I thought, they're going to be so embarrassed when these test results come back and there's nothing wrong with me. And so we started the process. They, in that first 48 hours, drained 8 liters of fluid from my heart and lungs. In my mind, though, in my reasoning mind, because I am a self-proclaimed MD, I still thought they were wrong. I did. And I remember they took me up when I got a room, and I remember making those first few phone calls. And everybody said, are you sure? You were just at work yesterday. And I said, I don't think this is really going to be anything. They did heart caths and echocardiograms and just anything and everything that they could come up with. And for 3 solid days, I believed in my heart they were wrong. Every morning, I kept expecting one of those cardiologists to come in and say, you know what, we made a terrible mistake. You're fine, you can go home. After that didn't happen, by the 3rd day, I thought maybe they're right. Maybe something is going on. And they were able to run tests and, with the help of the heart cath, determine what virus it was. It wasn't COVID. I just caught a random virus back in May. But the virus had settled into my heart and done what they said was irreparable damage. The lower two chambers of my heart have very thick scar tissue in there. And when they started running the tests, they came in and said, your heart is functioning at about 15%. And I remember thinking, it can't be. And the doctor said to me, you know, if you would have waited even 24 hours to come in, I might not be talking to you today. And it started to hit me. And I think I realized on that third day that my life, the way I knew it, had changed. And it would never be that way again. And on that third night, I stopped joking with the nurses, and I stopped making fun of the doctors. And I took a hard look at what my future was going to be. Those of you who know me, I worked, I traveled 6 months out of the year, I did trade shows, I did all kinds of things, and in my heart, I wanted that back again, but there was a part of me, I think, that knew it would never be. And on that third night, when it finally hit me that everything was true that they were telling me, after 3 days I hadn't turned the television on yet, and I had just kind of used music to fill my time. And in the middle of the night, you know, things are always darkest at night. When the sun's coming in the window during the day, things don't look as bleak. But when the sun begins to set, and of course nobody could come and visit, it was during the COVID thing, so I was there all alone. And I began to think, how am I ever going to get through this? So in the middle of that night, on that third night, I decided I was going to sing. Just to me. Not to anybody else. And I sang this. What have I to dread? What have I to fear? Leaning on the everlasting arms, I have blessed peace with my Lord so near, leaning on the everlasting arms. And it was just me singing softly in that hospital bed. I've always said that the hymns that we sing, they are the foundation of our faith. And when things are bad, we go back to those songs that we remember. We go back to those songs that we believe. And this is another one that I sang. If you know it, sing along with me. Sometimes on the mountain where the sun shines so bright, God leads his dear children along. And sometimes in the valley, in the darkest of night, God leads his dear children along. Some through the water, some through the flood, some through the fire, but all through the blood. Some through great sorrow, God gives a song. In the night season and all day long. About 4 o'clock in the morning on that third night, a nurse came in to take some blood work. And she heard me singing. And she saw that I was crying. At that point, it wasn't tears of desperation, but it was tears of shock, surprise. And that little nurse, and I have no idea what her name was, but at 4 o'clock in the morning, she came in and took my hand and said, "Can I pray for you?" And I said, "Yes." And that sweet little nurse, she lifted me up to God that day. And there was something about that. There was something about someone that I didn't even know that gave me some encouragement, that gave me some faith that I needed to fight, that I needed to work through this. And you know, often when we pray, especially when we pray out in public, we pray for each other. We say these flowery, "Oh, Heavenly Father who lives up in heaven, you are our great," we just go on and on and on. We know in Matthew 14:30, when Peter was walking on the water, it says he saw the wind. He was afraid and began to sink. And he cried out, "Lord, save me." He didn't pray a flowery, big prayer for everybody. He said, "Lord, save me." And that's what I said that night. I wasn't even in a place where I could pray. But I could say, "Lord, please save me." And he did. As things progressed, reality set in. The doctor came and talked to me on the 4th day I was there and told me that when your heart function is this low, there's something called sudden death syndrome. And what happens is it's functioning at such a low level that it will just stop. And so while I was in the hospital, I had all the monitors and things on, but he said, "I can't let you leave. I can't discharge you without a life vest." And you all saw me wearing that life vest. For 4 months, I had to wear a life vest with electrodes and everything in it, and carry a bag around my shoulder to make sure that my heart didn't stop. And during that time, I'll be honest, that thing was just a pain. It was hard. I could only be out of it for 5 minutes a day. I could take a quick shower every day, and someone had to be at my house. Now, for someone who's independent and never asks for help, that was hard for me. My sister had to take a leave of absence from work and move in my house. I had to have someone right outside the door every time I took a shower. And as I began to process all these things that were happening, and as they began to talk about possibly doing a heart transplant because they weren't sure that I would ever be able to get that function up high enough to survive without it, it became almost more than I could bear. And I appreciate so much all the people from the church who lifted me up and prayed for me and still pray for me every day. But there's a song I learned a while back, and it really describes the way I was feeling then. Because I didn't think I could stand on my own. I wasn't sure I would ever be able to be independent and even live alone again. And this particular song brought a lot of comfort to me. promised there'd be nothing that we couldn't make it through. And in my heart I know your word is true. It's just these waters that I'm sailing now, right now are mighty rough. Could you wrap me in your arms and hold me up? Hold me up so I can see. I've been trying hard to fly, but I can't find my wings. I am traveling through a time where all I have is not enough. I need to hear your voice and feel your touch. Could you wrap me in your arms and hold me up? There are others, Lord, who need to feel your power. Lord, I know I'm not the only one whose heart is hurting now. And if anyone knows how we feel, Lord, we know it's you. So please come and do what only you can do. Hold us up so we can see. We've been trying hard to fly, but we can't find our wings. We are traveling through a time where all we have is not enough. I need to hear your voice and feel your touch. Would you wrap us in your arms and hold us up? I am traveling through a time where all I have is not enough. I need to hear your voice and feel your touch. Would you wrap me in your arms and hold me up? Through all that time, there were days I didn't know how. I didn't know what to ask for. I didn't know what I needed. And in all honesty, I found it hard to pray. I had heard all my life, and I had ministered all my life, and I had told everybody in the valley, He restores my soul. And now here I was in the valley. And I found out my faith wasn't nearly as strong as I thought it was. When you're in that darkness, and you can't see the light, it's easy to forget that He's there. And when I didn't even know how to pray for myself, I know that He prayed for me. In Romans 8:26, it says, in the same way, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. We don't know what we ought to pray for, but the Spirit Himself intercedes for us through wordless groans. I can't help but be frank and candid with you, because I was so weak. My faith wasn't strong. And I struggled. I struggled grieving for the person I was, wondering what the future held. And I didn't know. And so when I couldn't pray, he prayed. You prayed. I found such strength in that. Those texts, those little notes, I prayed for you today. And so don't ever make that less than it is. Don't ever not do that because you don't think it matters, because it does. Throughout the fall, we tried everything we could think of to try. And I was in and out of the hospital, you all know that. They tried an IV therapy that they thought might prolong my heart for a couple years until I could get a transplant. And that didn't work. Everything we tried seemed to end in a failure. So finally in January, they decided to go ahead and put the internal defibrillator inside. And I remember a couple days after I had the ICD put in, I remember getting up out of bed. I had had such horrible pain. And I walked to the mirror in my bathroom and I looked at my body. And I was totally black and blue all over my chest, my arm. And I remember looking in the mirror thinking, is this what my life is going to be? And I know all of you have dealt with your own issues and probably had all kinds of surgeries and things like that. And so my little thing wasn't that big. And I actually felt guilty for hurting. I felt guilty for needing prayer from people. I felt guilty for needing support from people. And it took about 3 weeks, I think, for those bruises to finally go away. I guess when you cut muscle, it takes that long. And I didn't know what was going to happen. Every time I went to the doctor, they kept saying, you're looking at a heart transplant. And so one day I said, what if I don't want that? And my doctor, he said, well, there's an LVAD, we can do a number of things. That is an actual pump that exists outside of your body. They put tubes into you and run them outside and they go through I said, I don't want that. And we were getting to the point where we were right there at the end and didn't know what our solution was going to be. And he said, well, you know, there's something brand new. It's a cardiac implant. I don't know a great deal about it, but we're actually doing it here at Piedmont. And I said, what is it? And he gave me some information. I went home and being the good doctor that I am, I Googled it and went to WebMD and all that stuff and got all kinds of information about it. And so I thought, you know what? Maybe this is my answer. So I called and said, I'm really interested in this. And they said, well, it's going to be 6 months before we can get you in. It's a new procedure. We only have one surgeon here at Piedmont that's doing it. And I said, okay. So I started to share that. I kind of felt like that might be my answer. And so one day my phone rang, and it was one of the nurses at Piedmont. And she said, our surgeon has had a cancellation, and if you can come up, you can go ahead and have your consultation with him. And I said, sure, I'll go ahead. I didn't have a life. I wasn't doing anything. So I went ahead and drove up there and met with the surgeon, and he asked me questions and ran tests. And they had to do, because it goes in through the carotid artery, they had to do all these tests on my carotid and everything. And I went through all that with flying colors, and we met, and he said, I think that you would be a good candidate. And I said, okay, let's try it. And he said, I have an opening next Wednesday, 1 week away. And I said, excuse me? They told me it would be 6 months. And he said, no, I've got an opening. We can go ahead and do it. And I said, sign me up. This has been what I've been waiting on. And so a week later, thinking originally it was going to be in the fall, a week later I go and have the surgery. And I was the fourth person on the entire East Coast to get it. As of right now, there are only 14 people who have it. But so far, everything is positive. Everything is good, and they do tritations for 6 months and actually up the functionality of it. So I've got hardware all over. I kind of call myself the $6 million man. And it was just an amazing thing. And I got to thinking about that because maybe I'm a little bit vain, but I went to dinner with some people that I used to work with. And the lady looked at me and said, "What is that big scar on your neck?" And I said, "Oh, well, that's where they had to run the leads up from my chest to put that in." I said, "Is it really noticeable?" And she said, "Yeah, I can see it." And I got to thinking about my scars. The scars in my body and the scars in my heart. And I began to think about what a horrible, ingrate I was. That I'm worried about these little scars. And I began to think about what Christ went through for me. And I began to think as I got better, how could I not remember the price that he paid? The scars in his hands and feet. And I asked him to forgive me for forgetting that. Because my scars are nothing compared to the price that he paid. And just in the last few months, I still have my struggles, and I still don't know what the future holds. But I do know, beyond any doubt, who holds my future. And I know that if this doesn't work like we hope it does, and we've got to do something else, he is still in control. November is the month of thankfulness. And we need to be thankful always for the many blessings that he gives us. But today, I'm thankful for my scars, and I'm thankful for his. Waking up to a new sunrise, looking back from the other side, I can see now with open eyes. Darkest water and deepest pain, I wouldn't trade it for anything. 'Cause my brokenness brought me to you. And these wounds are a story you'll use. So I'm thankful for the scars, 'cause without them I wouldn't know your heart. And I know they'll always tell of who you are. So forever I am thankful for the scars. Now I'm standing in confidence with the strength of your faithfulness. And I'm not who I was before. No, I don't have to fear anymore. So I'm thankful for the scars, 'cause without them I wouldn't So forever I am thankful for the scars. So forever I am thankful for the scars. I know that we all go through valleys in our Christian walk. And I remember as a young musician, there was an old man named Howard Jewell that used to talk to me, and he let me play for him when I was just a teenager. And he always said to me, when you sing, sing to broken hearts, because there's one sitting on every pew. And I know that God is with us, but I also know that we have struggles and valleys. And if you're going through a valley today, I pray that these songs will bring comfort to you and peace and encouragement. We're all either in a valley, starting to go through a valley, or coming out of a valley. And there's one thing that I've learned through the course of my journey, and I know that all of our journeys are different. But there's one thing that stands true. No matter where you are right now, you don't have to stay there. I know without a doubt that He won't leave you there. I can't tell you why you're walking through this valley. I can't tell you just how long you've got to stay. I can't tell you why your heart feels so unsettled, or when this all will change. But I can tell you there is something you can lean on. It's a promise that won't bend and it won't break. It will keep you when the future is uncertain. You're not out of grace. When the darkness overwhelms you and the fear just won't subside, when your questions outweigh answers on those long and lonely nights, when you've got to keep on moving, He is with you in the valley of despair. He won't leave you there. He is with you when you think you just won't make it. And He is right there when it looks like hope is lost. You're gonna find out He's nothing less than faithful. So keep holding on, keep holding on. When the darkness overwhelms you and the fear just won't subside, when your questions outweigh answers on those long and lonely nights, when you've got to keep on moving, He is with you in the valley of despair. He won't leave you there. He won't leave you there. There has never been a moment, there will never be a day. He's not strong enough to rescue. He's not strong enough to save. When the darkness overwhelms you and the fear just won't subside, when your questions outweigh answers on those long and lonely nights, when you've got to keep on moving, He is with you in the valley of and this is one of the songs that has seen me through all this. All the way through. Listen to the words and I'll be done. As I look back on the road that I've traveled, I see so many times He carried me through. And if there's one thing I've learned in my life, my Redeemer is faithful and true. My Redeemer is faithful and true. Everything He has said He will do. Every morning His mercies are new. My Redeemer is faithful and true. My heart rejoices when I read the promise. There is a place I'm preparing for you. I know someday I'll see my Lord face to face, 'cause my Redeemer is faithful and true. My Redeemer is faithful and true. Everything He has said He will do. Every morning His mercies are new. My Redeemer is faithful and true. And in every situation He has proved His love for me. When I lack the understanding, He gives more grace to me. My Redeemer is faithful and true. Everything He has said He will do. Every morning His mercies are new. My Redeemer is faithful and true. My Jesus is faithful